Welcome back, everybody. It's Tuesday night, so another episode of Talk Openly with Lions Roar Dharma Center. My name's Jack, and I'm here with my excellent and just lovely friend, Daniel. Hey, Daniel.
Hi, Jack. It's so nice to see you.
So nice to see you too. Yeah, and before we jumped on, we were both talking about how we're feeling a little bit either under the weather or just kind of fatigued. So we agreed to just take it easy on each other tonight.
Yeah, exactly. We're not going to debate each other today.
We're not going to debate, which is really funny because that's our topic tonight. It being the debate night, the first debate between Kamala and Trump, we felt like maybe it'd be good to talk about what's a healthy debate and where might we get like a little bit tied up in ego when we're debating others, trying to get our point across. So
Yeah, how topical.
how topical. I know. We're trying to keep
Not
things
only that, but I just picked my kid up from school. They went to their first debate session.
really.
Yeah.
Wow, how'd it
Yeah.
go?
She said she's probably going to keep going, but that she felt a little bit flustered
Yeah.
because right off the bat, it was not the first session, it was the first one that she attended. So she showed up and they were like, "All right, now you're going to go and debate this kid who is a year older than you,
Oh, gee.
a year, one grade further and has been debating since they were in elementary school. And you guys are going to debate the use of existing artwork or art made by artists in the training of artificial intelligence. Go."
Oh,
And she was like, I haven't even thought about it. You know, it's she said it was a little bit rough, but she seems eager to get back to it.
wow, good for her. That's pretty cool that she faced that kind of obstacle and is like, I'm ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah. She's tenacious. We used to call her the honey badger when she was a little kid,
Nice.
just to give you some indication.
Yeah, and if no anyone listening hasn't, seen a honey badger in action, I recommend looking them up. They're intense.
That's right. I just saw a video of a honey badger taking on uh three lions, I think it was.
What?
Yeah. And it successfully trotted away.
Good for them.
Yeah. There's also that meme from way back when, the video of the honey badger.
I remember it.
Honey
Yeah.
badger don't care.
No, no.
Anyway, that's where she gets the little nickname from. We don't call her that anymore because she told us not to, and we respect
Yeah.
what the honey badger says.
Oh, Dad.
Yeah. No, but yeah, no, debates. I mean, I think it's an interesting topic to bring a sort of a Buddhist lens to, right? Because it's not it's sort of an odd topic, don't you think? I mean, it's topical, but
Mhm.
it's kind of for us, I think, a little bit sort of out in left field.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it is. And, one way that I was thinking about it on a personal level is like my tendency towards argument,
Hmm.
and how thinking about a more Buddhist approach to debate, especially the Tibetan tradition, um, it's a lot different
Yeah.
approach. There's a whole different purpose to it. And so I think we'll have plenty to talk about and I hope it's useful for people.
Without a doubt. I like a good debate myself. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think we'll definitely have a lot to talk about. How have you been in the last week since we saw each other?
Yeah, let me think about it. So it's hard to track. It's like all the days
Hmm.
start blending together. But I had I've been having some interesting experiences in meditation, where it's like I get a little bit of clarity or kind of presence,
Yeah.
um, and uh, and then goes back into kind of the crashing waves of thought. Um, but I got suggested by our teacher, Lama Gempa, that actually during the day, during post meditation, so the times that I'm not meditating, that it's really wise to not set the practice down completely. And to not set our studies down completely. So that anything that I'm reading, in terms of Dharma, that I'm reflecting on it throughout the day and that I'm carrying it with me. And so I didn't start doing this until like last night. Really kind of being attentive and really attempting to bring up one topic to just really mull over like
Yeah.
throughout my whole evening, and even while doing other things like brushing my teeth, thinking about karma. It was the topic that I decided to kind of chew on. um and it was fascinating. It was like this whole I, me, mine, which is usually what my thoughts, the content of my thoughts are. It's just all about me and what I want and what, when can I go to sleep and, what am I
Yeah.
gonna do next? All the things. Oh, that person, kind of didn't respond well to this thing in therapy. I'm just constantly thinking. And it was really nice to interrupt that and just say,
Oh,
I'm going to think about Dharma. I'm going to think about this
yeah.
topic that's complicated to me, that is still confusing and doesn't make sense to me, but I'm gonna mull it over as best as I can with what I've got and the teachings that I've received. Um, it was really nice. And I also noticed I felt this momentum kind of start to pick up, where like when I first started it, I was like, oh man, I felt kind of dumb, right? Like, oh, I don't really know what to even think about. Like, how do I
Yeah.
start?
Right.
But then there was this momentum that started happening where it's like, oh, I, kind of hold up an angle here, and then this other angle pops up, and I can kind of, just reflect in a few different ways. And there's also a momentum in terms of like, uh there was some momentum around my motivation, whereas like, oh cool,
Mm,
like this is interesting, right?
yeah.
um and I had pretty vivid dreams last night because I took the advice of Dan Martin, who gave a talk a while back about lucid dreaming. And I'm also reading The Attention Revolution by Alan Wallace, and he talks about lucid dreaming. So I was like, okay, so now that I'm in this kind of uh, momentum around really keeping karma in mind, I'm going to try and bring it into my dream world. And so I set an aspiration before going to bed that I'm going to continue working on this in my sleep.
Oh,
Um,
wow. That's so cool.
it was really cool, yeah. And I can't say that I specifically dreamt about karma, but I had vivid dreams, and I wrote down some notes. Like when I would wake up, I would write a couple notes of what I dreamt, and so those they're fresh to me. I can remember them,
Yeah.
rather than them being completely gone. Um, and then I got up this morning, did a meditation, and yeah, kept kind of just trying to keep the momentum going, and started today with thinking about ego, because we're going to be talking about debate and ego. Um, so it's interesting. I'm going to keep going with it because, turns out my teacher knows what he's talking
I was
about.
gonna say, way to follow your teacher's advice.
Follow my teacher's advice. Yeah, it's gosh, it's just ever more apparent to me that that's always going to be the right answer.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're definitely putting it into practice. That's so cool that you're keeping your mind like that you set your motivation, you're able to keep it going, feeding it constructive thoughts because it wants food, it wants something,
Yeah,
right? For the most
yeah,
part. Generally speaking, our minds want to do something. They want to be busy,
yeah,
given a task. And without any direction, without any intention, it sort of just does its crazy own
yeah,
thing, whatever
yeah.
that is, right? And
Uh-huh.
it's so cool that the way that you're setting your intention around it and even doing it at night before going to sleep, that is really, really cool. I
Mm,
was gonna say I like it even if you didn't dream, even if nothing came out of it. But the fact that you had some memorable dreams that you could write down,
yeah.
awesome,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
nice.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for the
Huh.
encouragement.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Huh.
Keep it
I
going. Yeah.
Yeah, huh. I'm gonna see about it tonight. Maybe I'll do the exact same thing. I've been uh doing some sort of focused meditations as well, but not really bringing it too much into post meditation.
Hmm.
Um, but what strikes me is this intentionality is something that I've been focusing on quite a bit um, in meditation, which is, like a lot of times it feels sort of rote. It's just like a thing I'm doing, and what I'm doing now is I'm really stopping it during my preliminary, before I meditate. And I'm stopping and just sitting for a while and examining my motivation and intention. Like
Mm.
I don't want to just do it for the sake of doing it, right? And it changes the flavor. It changes sort of the direction that I'm going with the meditation. And actually it's just like it's stabilizing, right? Setting
Mm.
the intention and having it very clear until it's palpable. And then
Okay.
and then
Yeah.
at then at that point meditating, it's super stabilizing, anchored. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, love it.
That's interesting. Yeah. So, um, can I ask what you do to really kind of get in that mindset of, okay, I'm not just reciting my, you know, kind of the bodhicitta aim or the four immeasurables, but I'm really, really checking in that that's my motivation.
Yeah, well, that's it. What you just said. I'm checking in. I'm stopping. Like, so yeah, I'll recite and I try to sort of make it as heartfelt and feel it as much as possible, right? And then I sit and ask myself, like, is it true?
Mm,
Is that what I'm doing? Is that why I'm sitting here? And what I notice is that a lot of times actually, no, it's not. What happens is I'll sit down, and that's what caused me to do this, to focus on this a bit, is um what I notice when I do this is actually that that I'm wanting something else. Like I'm sort of like I'm wanting calmness, or I'm wanting to be a good practitioner,
yeah.
or I'm wanting to do the right thing, be a good boy kind of stuff, like saying my prayers before I go to bed sort of thing, right? There's like that's actually sort of the predominant sort of motivation when I'm not intentional about it. When
Yeah.
I'm just doing it. It's something like being a good Christian and saying your prayers.
Yeah.
Um, but what happens is when I really examine, when I really sit there, it shifts, it changes. It's not forced. I don't tell myself like, "Oh, I'm definitely doing this for the benefit of all sentient being." No, I already recited what I recited. Okay, I try to make that okay, but now I want to make it real, you
Yeah.
know? And I really just sit with it and sort of like ask myself like, Why would you want to do that?" Why- you know
A
and then
great
and
question.
yeah, exactly. And then sometimes I'll sort of go a little bit further, and I know that we're setting our aims high, but like I'll kind of go a little bit further and be like, well, what does that look like in reality? When I really like, has meditation over the past several years, has it yielded benefit for other sentient beings, right?
Mm,
Like, is this true? Is it actually doing what it purports to do? Am I going in the direction that I say I want to be going? And yeah, sure. Absolutely. And when I do that, then it actually then I can feel it in my heart. Then I can
mm,
feel it like it becomes very real. When I said palpable, that's what I mean. Like there's this sort of sinking from head to heart that
yeah.
happens, right? And I don't have like a defined process for doing that, but I don't start meditating until that happens,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm not screwing around anymore, Jack.
Yeah. No,
I'm over it, right?
it sounds like
Yeah.
it. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's a good place to be. It's like it's kind of over it.
Yeah.
Over the bullshit that
That's
we
right. That's right. I had enough of that. That's
cycling.
actually
Yeah.
that's a big part of what sort of I'm sort of experiencing in my practice now is I realize how much of my practice is infused with wrong view and sort of wrong motivation. And
Mm,
it's subtle, but it's still there. And
totally.
I don't want to be doing it that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, you know, when you were talking, I was kind of thinking like, you know, that's something I tend to do as well as like this kind of almost like obligation
Hmm.
approach
Yeah.
where it's like, well, you know, I said I was going to do
That's
this
right.
and, you know, I made promises to my teacher and I want to be a good practitioner. And so it's a lot about obligation. And that's, you know, obligation, I think will get you somewhere,
Oh
right?
yeah,
It'll
yeah,
get you to
totally.
do it, but there's some like, I don't know what it is for me. There's like it takes the juice out of it a lot of
Uh-huh.
times, you know, like it's not
Yeah.
as sacred. It's just to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of authority. And
Exactly what you just
yeah,
said. That part.
yeah,
The
yeah,
obligation, when you say obligation, obligation to whom?
yeah, right.
Right?
Right.
And because of my conditioning and whatever my past behavior, whatever, I have this sort of like, well, I owe it to Lama, or I owe it to the Sangha, or I owe it to the world, or something. There's some kind of like you said, this obligation. There's a shoulding that's happening.
Right.
I should be doing it, right? I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be doing it. If I'm a good person, then I do it. If I don't, that kind of nonsense stuff. And this is a path of self-liberation,
Yeah.
right? So, so
Yeah.
it's not about obligation to others. We may create, an intention to be a benefit to others, but it's not an obligation in that sense, right?
Yeah.
This is really, it has to be personal and it has to be heartfelt and it has to be real. I mean, I think you're right. I think there's a little bit of faking it till you make it. There's a little bit of allowing the community and the sort of the normal sort of religious aspects of life to sort of support and give you some energy along the way. But at
Mhm.
some point, at least in my case, maybe I overly depended on it or something, but it kind of like it was a rough sort of falling out with that where I was like, wait a second, I don't like
Mm.
that. That's not for me. That's not authentic. It's not the
Yeah.
way that I wish to practice. And I feel like it's really deep in my practice. And I'm really happy that I'm doing it. I think that it's something I'll probably carry long into the future until every time I ask that question, I already know it.
Yeah.
I already know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. But it's
Yeah.
been kind of cool. So on Sunday, I went to group meditation at the temple, and one of the Sangha members who led the meditation. They said something that stayed with me yesterday, through Sunday, Monday, and today, and that is they said, imagine yourself like a seabird floating on the ocean, right?
Mhm.
You don't want to dive deep and you don't want to fly high. You're just going to stay right there in the middle. Such a cool
Mm.
visualization. And I find myself sort of coming back to that. And it's really pleasant because it really does give me this feeling like, oh, right, I'm kind of riding this in between state and I can see
Yeah.
how sometimes I want to take flight and sometimes I want to, dive in, right? I want to get excited or I go sort of
Mm.
towards the more lethargic states, right?
Right.
But I really want to maintain that floating but and that it's not static. That's the other thing I like
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
A lot of times when we talk about, like a middle way, you sort of envision this sort of static, like it's like that. It's right there and it's always right there. But
Yeah.
no, no, no. The situation is evolving and moving all the time, right? And so it's bouncing up and down and staying stable. Anyway, I thought that was fun. I got one more thing. One more
Yeah.
thing.
No,
I
this
gotta
is
share.
great.
Okay,
Great Dharma
so
news.
yeah, so this is so on Sunday evening, I met with a friend, and he had a few friends get together and it was a sort of a special moment because uh, we were all friends of this one guy, but none of us had met before. And so when we did, it was this lovely evening, so nice, so sweet. And at the end, my friend, his name is Jack, gave us all this. Let's see if you can see it. Can you see it, or is it no?
It's kind of
It's
blurry. What does
Oh,
it
it's
say?
blurry. That sucks.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Anyway, what it is, let me see if I can, hey, hang on, let me
Take
turn
off
off,
the blur, the
take off
background. There
there
you
we go.
go.
That's better anyway. I don't
Yeah.
like a blur.
Oh yeah. Oh, Atisha's 7 points. Oh, it's so
Isn't
good.
that sweet?
Yeah,
Yeah.
can you read them out?
Yeah, so these are some Lojong slogans, the original seven, I would say. The
Yeah.
first one, and we've had all of these, by the way, in our Lojong.
Right, right.
Right? So the first one is consider all phenomena as dreams. Be grateful to everyone. Don't be swayed by outer circumstances. Don't brood over the faults of others. My favorite, my personal favorite, explore the nature of unborn awareness.
Mm.
At all times, simply rely on a joyful mind. And bless you, my second favorite, don't
Thank
expect a standing ovation.
you. Yeah. Yeah, don't
And on the
expect
and
applause.
on the back, Jack, this is true for all of us, and it's a good reminder. It says, admirable friendship, admirable companionship, admirable camaraderie is actually the whole of the holy life.
Wow.
Thanks
Wow.
for living the holy life with me, Jack.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, that is so sweet. What a nice gift from
Isn't
a
that
friend.
nice?
Is
Yeah.
is he a Dharma practitioner then?
Yeah, yeah.
That's so cool.
He's not a Tibetan Buddhist. He's just sort of I what would you call him? He's like a it's like a Western sort of smorgasbord Dharma.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, he's got good taste.
Oh, totally. Oh, I've learned so
Yeah,
much from him for sure. He's been
yeah.
doing this longer than I can imagine. So he always has good advice. And his friends were practitioners as well. And so
Cool.
it was really good to all be together.
That sounds
Anyway, I was
wonderful.
happy to share that with you. It's such a sweet little plaque.
It's wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much. I guess
Uh-huh.
that means that we need to do some Lojong, huh?
I think so. I think it's
Yeah,
time. Let me
it's
see
fun.
about pulling up this page here. The random Lojong slogan generator on the Lions Roar Dharma Center website. Okay, tell me when you can see my screen.
I can see it.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna
Yeah.
push the big orange button.
Yep, let's do it. Great.
Oh,
Great.
oh, this is fantastic.
Oh,
Oh, I always go a little too far. There we go.
13. Wonderful. Meditate on the great kindness of everyone. So Charlie Chapgon, our man, I got to get this book, it's important.
We've
So
already read the whole thing, I think. No.
yeah, we've gotten a lot, but yeah, this is good stuff. So let's see. Practically all of the pleasure, joy, and happiness that we experience come to us because of the presence or activities of others. The food we eat is available to us because many thousands of people are involved in producing, packaging, and distributing it. The same applies to the water we drink, the clothes we buy, the electricity and gas we use, and any number of other things. Waiters bring us food in restaurants, hotel receptionists greet us, sometimes even by name, and bus drivers take us to our destination and exchange pleasantries with us. We must rely on others if we are to have any quality of life. It's not only those near and dear to us toward whom we should feel grateful, although the kindness of our loved ones often goes unrecognized the most.
Isn't that the key? Oh, so
Wow.
true. It's so true.
Yeah.
Ah,
And it's this one is really when I remember it, it's so precious, right?
yeah,
Um, those times where I can really feel and sense into my interdependence with others
that's right.
is
Yeah.
very, very just sweet and
Mm.
precious. Um,
Mm.
that there's so much gratitude. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's
I forget.
there are all these different ways to recognize or contemplate interdependence, right? But this aspect of it is really quite critical. I remember early on in my practice, I don't know if I've mentioned this or not. Have I ever told you? I used to have a very strong dislike for Dodge Ram 4x4 drivers. If I brought,
I think you have.
I think I probably have. It's one of those weird quirks where I
Uh-huh.
don't know what happened. There was some kind of trauma or something around it, and I
Yeah,
developed this incredibly strong opinion.
yeah,
It was like it was a truth,
yeah,
what
yeah,
I
yeah.
what I believed about Dodge Ram 4x4 drivers. And so I remember one time I was in the shower and and I was like, man, oh, this is so nice. It's so hot. The pressure is so good. The heat is so good. Like this is like sensory delight, this
Yeah.
shower. This is amazing. And I was like, you know what? I'm grateful. I am grateful for this shower. And then I was like, well, what made the shower possible? And I started thinking about it. And then I thought about the plumbers who probably worked on the apartment and the
Yeah.
plumbing there.
Yeah.
And I thought, I bet you some of those plumbers probably drove Dodge Ram 4x4 pickup trucks.
Very possible.
And
Yes.
then I was like, oh. And kid you not, I know it sounds stupid, but I
Mhm.
felt that was the very first time that I felt this incredible softening. It softened all up, all my animosity and anger and opinions and stuff. And I recognized I was like, right, in order for things to be the way they are, things need to be the way they are. And so those aspects that I like, those things that I'm really happy about, I mean, they are all empty and interdependent as well, right? And so, I this gratitude is immense and it extends to all beings, right? But especially those who are directly related, like he's talking about here, right? Like there
Yeah.
isn't anything. There is nothing that we do, there is nothing that we enjoy in this life, none of it that doesn't depend on others, on the kindness of others.
Right. Yeah. No, it's just it's one of those facts that it seems so simple. It's like it's right in front of us and yet so easy to just kind of brush under the rug. And I love that he says here about, if we're to have any quality of life,
That's right.
we need to feel this gratitude towards others and recognize just how tied we are to them. And um because for me sometimes I think that my quality of life would be better if I was just like alone, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but when I really think about it, of course, being alone, I would still have to have a home. I would have to have
Hmm.
things within the home,
Yeah.
things that I cannot build myself and make myself. I'm still utterly dependent on
Oh my
others'
gosh. I
kindness.
was thinking, Jack, about this the other day, what you're just talking about. I was thinking, oh, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to just be alone, right? And I had this, I was like, yeah, yeah. And so I started visualizing it, right? Like I'm not great at visualization, but when it's something I really long for, then
Yeah.
my fantasy mind really kicks in. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, so I'm getting ready. I'm leaving. I'm gonna go find a cave or whatever. And I was like, well, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna get started? And I thought, well, I should probably have a few clothes. I should probably pack a little bit of food. And then right then I was like, but damn it, that's dependent on other people, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, like really, what do I do? Do I have to start off naked and no food, no nothing, just start walking? You
Yep.
know?
Yep.
Even,
And harvest some nettles in the woods, you know?
well, even then, okay, harvesting nettles in the woods, totally stripped down. I got nothing, and I no food, no nothing, just me and the nettles in nature, right? But guess what? I still bring with me all of my thoughts, my
Yeah.
memories. I bring with me all of these things, right, that are dependent on other people. So,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not just that the current moment is dependent on these
Right.
on
Right.
everything, right? Past, future, present, whatever. If there is anything at all, if there's any quality to life at all, it is
Yeah.
dependent on others. It has to be. There's just no
Yeah.
other way. And that was sort of like then I had this sort of softening again, and I was like, oh, right. Well, I guess I don't really need to go and be alone.
That's good. I'm glad you don't want to go live alone and
No,
isolated.
no, it's just sort of a feeling, right?
Oh yeah, no,
But
I think it often.
before we get off of this Lojong slogan, I do want to put a shout out there for Geshe Jampa Tekchok.
Mm,
The Kindness of Others is a book that he wrote. It's a commentary on the 7-point mind training, right?
okay,
But it is an absolute gorgeous book, The Kindness of Others, and it has
nice.
such wonderful advice about working with other people and remembering their goodness even in those moments where we feel like we can't see it,
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
which
great.
is good practice for some of the candidates debating tonight.
I agree. Jeez. Um, yeah, let's jump in. Let's get to our topic tonight.
Let's do it.
I'm guessing that the debate is well underway. I haven't been paying attention to the news today because I'm kind of just tired of the noise, it's just like
Oh, did you
so
hear any of it? None of it?
I haven't heard any of it.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
was it on earlier? Okay, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
it
even
started an
know.
hour and a half ago, so it's probably over right
It's
now.
probably over. Okay. Any impressions?
So I'm not a political guy.
Yeah.
I don't pay a lot of attention to politics. I'm not heavily immersed in the news. I stay up to date, but like we've talked about our relationship to news and stuff. I'm not a big consumer of it.
Mhm.
Um, and so tonight though, I was driving before the show, and it happened to be I was aware that the debate started at 6 p.m. So I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on NPR. I'm gonna just listen. And oh my God, I was just blown away. I was entertained on the one hand.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I was
Yeah,
entertained.
yeah,
I was
no.
like, this is madness. This
It's madness.
I can't even believe that I'm hearing this. I mean, like little me, like younger me, if you had told me that in the future I would live to see a presidential debate like this,
Yeah.
I would just I'd laugh at you. There's
Oh
no
my.
way. It seems so unbelievable and outrageous.
Yeah, yeah. We are living in strange times, it's
Very strange.
really very strange times. And uh, you know, I feel like what we're going to talk about tonight is so important for our times where
Yeah.
um you know we have just we're in such a crucial moment for our planet, in terms of kind of irreversible damage that we've done to our planet. Like we've
Mhm.
really got to find ways to come together and figure out how to work with one another. And so that's going to involve a lot of disagreement, even for people who are on like the same side of the debate or
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah.
There's plenty of disagreement about how to do things. And so, how do we debate and keep in mind the goodness of others? How do we do, and how do we also like, how do we engage when we're not sure that the other person is acting in good faith? There's so much kind of to this topic. And so I'm glad that we're looking into it tonight.
Yeah.
Um, so, maybe we could share a little bit about what the purpose of debate is in kind of like mainstream culture or even like political culture. What are people trying to do in a debate?
Yeah, so I think that there's sort of what they're actually trying to do, and then there's a sort of purported purpose, right? And so, you know, I would say that the purported purpose of the majority of public debates is to um, clarify positions and to sort of define policies. I mean, let's say political debates because there's too many different kinds of debates out there to get into. But I think that what's actually happening there is there's a lot of sort of clash of egos, right? And a sort of sort of like it's almost like each candidate or each person in the debate is like holding up, they're trying to create the most HD, high definition version of their ego. Like this is the definition of who I am, right?
Yeah.
And it's so clear. Like I was trying to sort of like when I was listening to the debate earlier, I was like, okay, so okay, right, these egos that are so the apparent, like what I'm seeing. And of course, I think we need to be careful. Ego means different things to different people,
It
right?
does.
And
Yeah.
within just sort of, I'm just saying, like in sort of like in the usual way, right? Like there's the character, the persona. Who is
Mhm.
this person? And right, and everybody's trying to appeal to the population in order to sort of win their vote. At least that's what it appears to be. And
Yeah.
so they want people to be able to identify with them, and they're wanting to feel like they're strong and capable and smart and all those things. And the way they go about it is so drastically different.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds too like, you're touching on how in debate when you're trying to win over an audience, there's a lot of like opportunism that happens. And so, you're kind of creating this HD version of yourself that's gonna, appeal to the masses. And that means that like, you're gonna sometimes just take on other people's opinions because it's like, it's gonna help your cause. Um,
Yeah.
and so there's just like a lot of opportunity for opportunism, and maybe not always aligning with your ethics, with your values. Um, and I mean, I see that a lot with, well, I was gonna say with Trump, right? That he'll just kind of take on any opinion that seems like, his base is interested in. Um,
Yeah.
and even if it's something that maybe in the past he disagreed with. Same thing with his, vice presidential nominee, JD Vance, very opportunistic.
Yeah.
Um, and uh, and so there's like this watering down of one's own ethics so that it can be a more presentable, like kind of, or persuadable character. um,
Hmm.
and um and then so yeah, it's like, uh you're kind of like upholding and then creating new egos. You're like upholding your own ego, then creating new egos on top of it. And there's all this just, yeah, just creation, falsity.
Right. But a lot of that creation, it seems to me that it's a vicious feedback loop, which might
Yeah.
explain some of the extremism because the candidates, just talking about this debate, the candidates are trying to mirror what they think the population wants to see, which is also what they think that they're, or at least what their portion their whatever their supporters would like to see, right? And
Mhm.
so there's this, I think, this mirroring that's going on in terms of language and posturing, policies, all of it, where they want people to see themselves in them, right?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I think that what's sort of happening is almost like two mirrors, just like like it's like a feedback loop, right? And
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like there's any real authenticity in there at all.
Yeah. There's no substance. Uh,
No, and it's weird. I remember actually debates in the past. Of course, people, politicians have been trying to win votes through debate for a very long time, and none of this is particularly new. But there was oftentimes this sense of a person still there, right? Like
yeah.
of an actual like person who had their own opinions, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm a politician, and I'm going to do politician things, but I'm also a person, and there's some of
Yeah.
that." you know personality in there. It doesn't feel that way, at least not to
Yeah.
me.
It's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and um, maybe this whole kind of, discussion around debate um and argument, it's interesting that, uh we have to know ourselves, our relative self, even though,
Yeah.
in Dharma we're looking beyond the relative self. We're trying to see that this is not it, right? But at the same time, like, we do need to know our, like, driver's license ID person,
Yeah.
and be able to show up authentically, because otherwise, yeah, we're kind of like taking on other people's opinions. At least that's what it seems like on the national scale. So what
For
does it look
sure.
like, to be in debate on, let's say, just like an everyday level, um, and be holding kind of like multiple truths at once, right? Like the relative
Yeah.
truth of like, hey, this is where I'm coming from as me. And then what I believe is the purpose of Buddhist debate, which is that we're getting at the ultimate truth. We're trying to kind of like
Right.
look deeper into reality and what's there. And so I find that really interesting. It's like, how do we do both? What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that there's I think when I say that I like debate with the intention to reveal truth, right? As much as it is possible. And to really to understand where the other people or person is coming from. That's
Mm,
ultimately like truly what I want to know in an argument or discussion with somebody else. And of
that's
course,
admirable, I have to say.
well,
Yeah.
and but it's gotten me into a lot of trouble
How so?
throughout the years
Interesting.
because I so love this that I will fall into this debate position with just about anybody. And if you don't clarify it in up front, if you don't sit like, and I'll tell people, no, 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 I love this. Like, we're just having a good time here, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is this is us establishing dialogue. This is how we get to know each other, right? But because of egoic attachment, right, to positions and like the way that we present and all of that, it can make people feel really defensive.
Yeah.
A lot of times, it actually is not debate, it is argument and it's personal, you
Mm,
know. And I think that it's problematic because at that point, once it becomes personal, once it becomes egoic, the hope of actually sharing common ground and understanding each other, not necessarily agreeing with each other, but just understanding and seeing, other people's positions, that gets eroded pretty quickly. And I've
yeah.
always found that incredibly disappointing in relationships.
Yeah.
My partners have told me before, you go do that with somebody else. You
Ah,
don't like, I don't ever want to do that, right? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
we can talk, but debate, you take that somewhere else,
Yeah.
So and of course a lot of that is because of my own lack of skillful means, right? Because
Mm,
what happens is that it wouldn't arise if, like, for example, if I was using nonviolent communication sort of framework, it would be less likely, it'd be more likely that I would achieve my objective. But the problem is I get all excited, I'm into this stuff, right? So then I insert my
yeah.
ego into it, and it is personal at that point. Even if I'm still bantering or having a good time, it's still me in there doing them, my ego, my beliefs, my delusions, all of that stuff.
So you feel like your approach to what you feel is you're trying to get to the truth, and this you can kind of engage in this fun debate, but not everyone's on those same terms.
No,
And I
definitely not.
imagine, especially in this culture too, where it's like it is about just kind of defending oneself and and maybe not just our culture, maybe, all over the place. But
Right.
so people aren't on the same plane with you. It's
No.
irritating and
Yeah,
what are you
yeah.
getting at?
And I agree with
Uh,
them. I think
yeah,
it's aggressive. It's aggression. It
it's
is in fact violent communication, right? The way that I think that to me that what we would think of as like the goal or one of the goals perhaps of Buddhist debate, where it's actually the opposite, where we're trying to dissolve the ego and our attachments and all of
yeah.
that. Um, I think that if I set my intention properly
Mm,
around that, it'd probably yield better results. And it has actually, I would say that depersonalizing it and sort of bringing a bit of for lack of a better word, a more Buddhist approach to my discussions with other people where we disagree on things or
mm,
maybe don't see clearly each other's point of view, that the other form didn't work. It never did the thing that I wanted it to do. I would say that that was my goal, but never ever did I act in such a way that I could achieve that goal. Whereas if I let go of myself and I'm actually present and pay and I can set my attention on what the other person is actually saying, right? And engage with them in this deliberate way to sort of pull out, like get them to sort of visualize and tell me what where they're coming from and ask sincere questions, not loaded questions, not
Mhm.
argumentative questions, but like if I actually have that intention, if I actually have that desire, the language, what comes out is quite different. It's a lot
Yeah,
softer, it's a lot gentler, and it doesn't inflame the other person's ego. It may be there, their ego, certainly it's there, but it doesn't get so inflamed.
yeah, yeah. No, that's a good awareness that, even in maybe especially in these kind of like everyday experiences, being aware of our motivation, because like as you
That's
were
right.
saying at the beginning, that you are really trying to focus on motivation before you meditate. Maybe it's just as, if not more important, to consider our motivation when we're out of the training sphere of meditation, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
without a doubt, right? Like
yeah,
so, we can think about debate, all of the debates, any kind of debate at hand, we can think of that as a performance, right? So that's what, I've heard Lama talk about this before, where he's like, practice is where you get to like sit and do things over and over and over again, and it's
yeah,
okay, and you're just practicing, it's no big deal, right? And then there's the performance, and the
yeah,
performance you don't get to take back, there's no redoing it, nothing like that. You get one
yeah,
shot at doing that performance, whatever it is, and all of our debates are a performance, and that's why practice is so
right.
important. That's why what you were talking about at the outset is so critical. Oh, you think meditation, that's nice, right? Oh, you're doing your regular daily meditation. It doesn't stop there. That's just to get the ball rolling, right?
Right.
It's actually, we want to extend that awareness. We want to extend that intentionality even into our deep sleep,
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
every facet of our life constantly. So certainly it needs to show up in debates and arguments.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I notice that I can get if I'm not conscious of it, I can get pretty rigid around like arguments. And rather than approaching it with kind of like some curiosity, right? Which I think that's in, when we're talking about debate from like the tradition, it's really kind of trying to get at reality, right? We're
Yeah,
curious. We're wanting to engage with each other's ideas so that, we can come closer to the truth together.
yeah,
And so when it's just an argument like about, I don't know, who like didn't do the dishes or like when do we need to have a chore chart type thing, um like that's a lot harder, right? Because it's like it's it's not it's not abstract anymore. It's like this
yeah,
real like concrete, like, no, I have the right idea. How could you possibly think that that was the right idea?
yeah.
I
The
get
devil's in the
rigid, right?
details.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, like, how I can bring in more kind of Dharma principles here. And I think that, one thing that the practice has really taught me, is that, usually if I'm pretty like stubborn about something, I'm usually wrong and I need to ask for help.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I think meditation has really offered me that flexibility of mind to be able to reflect. Am I just being really stubborn right now? And I think also like when I can be really curious about another person's opinions, um, I'm no longer kind of like discounting their position. I'm usually when I'm in an argument, I've already got all of the reasons for why they're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've already got like a sense of how I'm going to respond. I'm not
Right.
listening, and I'm just kind of like waiting to tell them why they're wrong. But if I'm really engaged and kind of open to listening to their perspective, um, then I'm definitely going to hear like, well, why did that feel rational to you? Why does that sound rational? Okay, I can see
Right.
where you're coming from. I
Ex-
still don't see it that way, but I can see
right.
where you're coming from, you know? Um,
It's kind of
but
like what you were saying earlier, like we're gonna have to, we have a lot of discussion ahead of us if we're gonna solve some of the crises
yeah,
facing our planet, right? And it could very well be that we oftentimes might actually finally agree that we would like to go from point A to point B, right?
yeah.
Right now it seems maybe like that would be a difficult thing to do, sort of, to get sort of unanimous consent to, to stop global warming and do what, okay, I get it, right? But let's just say, like in our daily lives, like we might actually agree that we want to get from point A to point B. And it sounds to me like some of what you're saying is like you already kind of assume you both agree, whatever, on whatever the outcome, what you're trying to do there. You're trying to help a patient, or you're trying to get the kitchen clean, or
Yeah.
whatever the goal is. And then there's something about the way they do or don't do something that you're just like, that is never going to get us from A to B. It just cannot. How stupid could you be? Right. And is that true? First of all, is that a fair, like, sort of what, a little bit of what you're pointing to?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. That there's
Right.
that is, yeah, that's an important piece to it that like, okay, in some ways we agree. Like we agree that there's a problem. I like that's important. Like, do we both agree that there's
Yeah.
a problem, right? If one of us doesn't feel there's a problem, then, like how are we even going to debate and figure out what a solution is?
Right. Right.
So
So,
maybe step one is, yeah, recognizing a problem or not a problem, right?
yeah, okay. But then, could it be that, like, if I was a bodhisattva, would I, if another person was misguided, wrong in their view, right? Would I want to use skillful means to help them to correct that view,
So
right?
yeah, certainly, right? Isn't that
Right?
kind of the mandate?
It
Yeah.
is, it
Yeah.
is. And therefore, since we seek to do this for all sentient beings, including ourselves, it has to allow for that, where we have to have some of that touch of beginner's mind. We do not know where the other person is coming from. And as you
Yeah.
sort of alluded to, if you can stay with it, if you can be like, dude, I don't see how you thought that that was going to yield clean dishes, or how that was acceptable, or
Yeah.
whatever. If you can sort of set that aside and be like, hey, like you said, do we agree that we want whatever this goal? Oh yeah, we
Yeah.
both agree on that. Okay, great. I'm just kind of curious because this is what I mean by that. And what do you mean by that? Right? And then continuing, but in a sincere, playful, curious, not attached to outcomes, right?
Ah,
I
that's
think that
important.
is so freaking important, Jack.
Yeah.
If you're attached to the outcome, don't even bother with the freaking debate,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's
Yeah.
unlikely to yield the results that you want, right? Because you might force another person into accepting your position, but it's not real, it's
Right,
not
which is
authentic, it's
just
not
gonna lead
genuine.
to resentment and
Yeah, it's going to cause all kinds of
yeah.
problems, right? But
Yeah.
if you really are genuinely in search of truth and harmony, and moving towards a better, brighter future for you and your dishes, or the world, or whatever, you know, then the this other approach is more likely to be of benefit.
Yeah.
Ah,
Huh,
huh.
that's interesting. I haven't thought about that being really tied uh to a conclude like some kind of conclusion that you've already settled on that that's going to be okay. If we've already
Well,
got an idea in mind of the solution or of how we'd like it to end, then we're going to be in trouble.
we're in a lot of trouble, right? And
Yeah.
we're not being sincere, actually,
Yeah.
right?
Right,
If we
right.
come
Because
back
then
to
what's
our,
the purpose of debates? Yeah,
that's right.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
There's also this other notion. I'm a little bit on like one of the things I like to sometimes play with is that so when we're debating, arguing, having these kinds of discussions, we're using language, right? And language is inherently false.
Yeah,
It itself is not truth. Language is, it cannot be, right? There may be fingers pointing at the moon, but they're not the moon. And
mm,
so this sort of ultimate truth, right? The truth about the nature of the way things are, the way that we are, is inexpressible by words, right?
yeah,
We cannot. And so all of this other shit that we're doing is it's a game.
yeah,
It's a performance, right? And if you end up taking it for real, there's an actual me over here
yeah.
arguing with an actual somebody over there about real honest to God
That real
things,
stuff.
right? Real
Yeah.
stuff that actually matters, right? And we lose ourselves in that. And it has to, the outcome has to be a certain way, or else it's a failure, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's just sort of regular old samsaric
Oh yeah.
suffering, right?
Oh, it's such suffering. It's such suffering. I mean, I'm kind of thinking like, have you ever had a moment where, you think you've come to a conclusion with someone? Like it feels like,
Yeah.
okay, we really understand each other. We got it. We got
Yeah.
through that. That was difficult. And then like pretty soon down the road, it's like, hey, wait a minute, how is this thing still the same? Or like, oh, you're doing it in a way that I totally like, what? You
That's
know?
right. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
right that like we can even like if we're so like trying to be so clear with one another, like there's still going to be this way that language doesn't get us always to like just a shared truth even sometimes.
No, no, totally not. But I do think that as far as the relevant world, not relevant, the relative aspect of debating goes, if there's a sense of superiority, as in like I have a better position, a stronger position, I see the truth more clearly, right? I'm not saying that you do or I do or anything, but let's just say that that's how you feel, right? Your
Mhm.
ego is like, I know the truth and I know the right way. Well, where's the, okay, you're so wise. That's wonderful. The other side of wisdom is compassion. So for all those dumb people who are clouded and covered over. They have all kinds of obscurations, like we had and still have. But if we're taking the superiority, I can see clearly and all of that. Then
Mm.
we still, even if we are the bee's knees and we know the right way and and we're right about 100% and we don't need to get their opinion or any of that, right? Even if that were completely true, which it can't be, but if it was, well, don't you kind of owe it to them then, right? To help them to see the light?
Totally right. Yeah. So might as well do it in a way that's not misery making, right?
Yeah, yeah, and
Keep trying.
it has to be playful because if it's not, then it's personal. And it's,
Yeah.
I think like it doesn't have to, I don't mean it can't be serious. It can be drop dead serious, right? But
Yeah.
I think that recognizing like the limitations of language, recognizing that we can't see into each other's minds and truly get what the other person is thinking or what they intend or any of that. Like we're
Yeah.
all just doing the best we can, you know.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
we've got is these stupid words and language and
Right.
it's not that
Right.
helpful.
And fortunately for us, we don't have like these ridiculous HD TV screen versions of ourselves that we have to maintain. Like we get to be
Yeah.
genuine, authentic people with one another. Like we can really, we can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, keep debating me. If there's times on the show, like
I have a
let's
request. I have a
so
request, Jack.
yeah, yes.
Okay. So here's my official request. We're right around episode 100 of our
No
show.
way.
Yeah, I believe that we might be past it, but we're
Okay.
somewhere around there. I think that somewhere in the next 50 episodes, somewhere in there,
Yeah.
we need to have a debate. And what
Okay.
my request is that, and they could even be a somewhat regular thing, right? Okay, because Llama did request, he has requested multiple times that not you and I, but that the Sangha engage in more debate. He thinks debate is incredibly valuable and he
Yeah,
wishes that we were doing more of it. Maybe we can practice some debating ourselves, pick some
interesting.
topics and try sort of a Tibetan,
Yeah, yeah.
right? That style, right, of debating with each other. Of course, we'd get in some instructions on how to do it properly, right? And
Yeah.
then like, let's go for it.
Okay. That
Okay?
sounds fun.
Wouldn't
Yeah,
that be, I would
sounds really
love
fun.
that. You could be my debate buddy.
Yeah, debate buddy, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we need to have Rinpoche on here,
Mm.
that's gotta happen for especially for our hundredth or hundredth and some. Yeah, he's a busy guy, but we'll get him on here. It needs to happen.
When when it's a episode something multiple of six, you
There
know?
you go. Yeah.
Right.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much. This has been it's surprisingly lively conversation
Yeah, it was
given
fun.
our,
Thank you, Jack.
both of our fatigues.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked out
Um,
well.
it worked out well.
Hmm.
Well, take care and thanks everybody. We'll see you next week.
Bye, Jack.